Milin stared at a shiny new nameplate reading Milin Patil, Junior Officer. It was his very first morning at the high profile Mumbai CIB headquarters. He sat up straight, anxiously adjusting his stiff new uniform, trying his best to look like a tough, experienced cop. Before he could even settle in, the main glass door swung open. Tapan walked into office, looking effortlessly sharp and confident. Agent Kritika Inandan looked up from her tablet. Seeing Tapan, she stepped over to Milin's desk and gestured for Tapan to come over. Milin, stand up, Ritika said in her usual commanding voice. This is Milin, our new junior officer. He's joining us from today. She then turned to Milin. And Milin, this is Advocate Tapan Thite. He helps us in our investigation. Tapan extended his hand, giving the young officer a warm smile. Our team is expanding. Great. The credit goes to you, Kritika said, looking at Tapan. Since you have joined us, we are closing cases fast. Our team is getting highlighted everywhere, and the bosses are giving us more assignments. Tapan's eyes lit up with mischief. He leaned against the desk, immediately starting to tease her. Praising words coming out of Agent Kritika's mouth. I am absolutely delighted. Should I celebrate? Kritika rolled her eyes, trying to stop this teasing before it got out of hand. Don't get too happy. We don't have any active case yet. You are completely free today. Then I will wait right here, Tapan said. His playful smile disappeared for a second, replaced by a serious look. If any news comes about Vijay, I don't want to be late to act. Ritika crossed her arms. Don't you have to work at the court? How is your law firm running without you? I have a good team of advocates working with me, Tapan said with a smooth shrug. They can handle it perfectly. My practice is in safe hands. Nice, Kritika said. Then let's go to meet Deva and ask him about his surveillance plan. Before walking away, Kritika picked up a thick case file from her desk and handed it to Milin. Milin, study this file thoroughly today. The moment Tapan and Kritika left the room, the serious atmosphere vanished. Officer Vitthal Deshmukh and Officer Atul Shah immediately slid their chairs over to Milin's desk, grin on their faces. Welcome, kid, Atul said, leaning over. Which file did Kritika ma'am give you to study? Let me see. Milin showed them the cover. Atul's face turned serious. Oh, this one. This is the case of Priya Ahuja. A very interesting case. This is the exact case where Tapan first joined the CIB. Vittal added, leaning back. Milin looked at veteran officers. His curiosity piqued. I read about him in the news archives. Criminal Vijay Rao, whom Tapan saved in court, ended up walking free and killing Tapan's own brother, Rajan Thite. Vittal nodded slowly, his eyes clouding over with old memories. He took a sip of his tea and looked at Milin, who was eager to listen more. The newspaper don't know half of it, boy, Vittal said softly. Let me tell you the whole case of the Ahujas. Let's go back to how it all started. Vittal leaned in closer to Milin, his voice dropping into a serious tone. This happened a few months ago, right after Rajan was murdered. Back then, Tapan was completely broken by grief. He used to come to our office almost every single day, desperate for answers. He kept asking Kritika ma'am if we had found Vijay Rao yet. Milin listened intently as Vittal continued. Tapan used every single high level connection he had in Mumbai, but he couldn't find Vijay anywhere. Why? Because Vijay's father, Gopal Rao, a massively powerful politician who was shielding him from the law. One particular night, Tapan had been sitting on a wooden bench in our office for the entire day, just waiting to speak to Kritika ma'am. When she finally walked out of her cabin late at night, she looked at him with heavy eyes and told him, we are trying our absolute best, Tapan, but there is no lead yet. Vittal took a deep breath, reliving the memory. Right at that moment, the director of CIB, Mr. Chatterjee, stepped into the office. He looked incredibly tensed. He walked straight up to Kritika ma'am and told her, "A very high profile case had just landed. You need to handle this with extreme urgency and be very careful. Drop everything and go to the crime scene right now." Ritika didn't hesitate. She turned to Tapan, said a quick "I'm sorry," and rushed toward the exit. Kritika ma'am and I ran down to the parking lot and piled into the CIB car. I twisted the key in the ignition, but the engine just made a dead clicking sound. It wouldn't start. Tapan, who had followed us down, saw us struggling. His personal assistant Raghu was already in the driver's seat, reviving the engine. Tapan offered us a ride, and because we were in a massive hurry, we jumped in. That's how Tapan ended up coming with us to the crime scene. Car pulled through the massive iron gates of the Ahuja estate, Vittal described, his eyes focusing on the empty air as he pictured it. The Ahujas are among the biggest, richest industrialists in Mumbai. We drove down a road lined with perfectly manicured gardens until we reached the main entrance of their massive bungalow. And right there, at the bottom of the grand stone stairs, we saw a dead body. Milin leaned forward, completely hooked. It was Priya Ahuja, the wife of the elder son Mukesh Ahuja, Vittal said. She was wearing simple silk pajamas, but when I looked closely at her, something felt off. Even though she married into immense wealth, she didn't look like she belonged to a high society family. She looked like an ordinary girl from a humble middle class background. Standing a few feet away from the body was Mrs. Maya Ahuja, the family matriarch. She was holding her elder son, Mukesh, comforting him as he trembled with grief. We walked up, flashed our badges, and told them we were from CIB. We explicitly mentioned that the younger brother, Prabhas Ahuja, had called our director and asked us to investigate. Maya Ahuja looked deeply saddened, but she was incredibly composed. She handled the horrific situation with absolute practicality, instantly giving orders to her staff to make sure the media didn't get a whiff of this. Even in tragedy, her main priority was protecting the Ahuja family's pristine reputation. Krutika ma'am stepped up to the family, her eyes scanning the grand stairs and the open terrace above. "Who saw her fall first?" she asked. Mukesh wiped his tears and spoke up. "I was walking toward the kitchen area inside. I noticed the main entrance door was wide open, which was unusual for that hour. As I walked over to close it, I looked through the glass and saw her. I saw her falling straight down from the terrace. I rushed out immediately and checked her pulse, but she was already gone. I just don't understand. Why would she commit suicide?" I looked around the immediate area and noted the absence of person who had summoned us. "Where is your younger brother, Mr. Prabhas Ahuja?" I asked. "Prabhas is currently on his way back," Mukesh replied. "He went to Nashik yesterday to inspect the blueprints for our new factory expansion. He should be here any minute." Vittal shifted his chair, taking another sip of his tea before continuing his story to Milin. "Now, you have to remember, Milin, Tapan wasn't just any random lawyer back then. He was already a highly famous name in the Mumbai High Court. On top of that, he had actually represented the Ahuja company in a massive corporate lawsuit a year prior and won it for them. So the moment Maya Ahuja noticed him standing behind us, her elite demeanor softened slightly. She recognized him instantly. "Advocate Tapan," Maya said, "please come inside. All of you, come in." We all walked into a grand living room and sat down on the lavish leather sofas. Mukesh looked completely crushed. He sat with his head down, staring blankly at the floor. Kritika ma'am sat straight, getting right to business. She looked at Mukesh and asked, Mr. Mukesh, has Priya been under any tension recently? Did she have a fight with anyone? Mukesh slowly lifted his head, hesitating for a moment. Yes, Mukesh admitted, wiping his face. Last week, she had a terrible violent fight right here in this house with her own brother. Her brother came here demanding a massive sum of money. Priya flatly denied him. The argument got so heated and intense that Priya actually lost her temper and slapped him across the face. In a fit of rage, her brother lunged forward and grabbed her throat tightly, choking her. I had to physically jump in between them to pull him off her and throw him out of the house. Kritika ma'am noted the details down. And what about tonight? Walk us through the timeline. It was around 9 or 9:15 p.m. when I saw Priya screaming and falling down. Mukesh said, closing his eyes tightly. My mother was resting inside her own bedroom on the ground floor, and our housemaid was finishing up her daily chores in the kitchen area. Everything happened so fast. Kritika ma'am nodded and then turned her sharp gaze to the Maya. Mrs. Maya, I need to inspect the terrace immediately to see where Priya fell from. Maya Ahuja gave a weak, tired sigh. I'm sorry, agent, but I cannot climb the stairs. I have severe knee and health issues. Suman, she called out loudly toward the kitchen. A young housemaid quickly ran into the living room, looking terrified. Maya ordered her to show us way upstairs, and we headed toward the terrace. Vittal leaned back, his eyes narrowing as he continued recounting the investigation to Milind. So, we started walking up the stairs toward the terrace, with the young maid leading the way. Air in the house felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. While walking up, Kritika ma'am leaned closer to the maid and asked her quietly, Suman, right? Tell me, did you notice Priya going through any trouble recently? Was she acting strange? Milin leaned in, eager to hear the clue. The maid looked terrified, Vittal said. She glanced over her shoulder to make sure Maya and Mukesh couldn't hear us. Then she whispered, Ma'am, yesterday afternoon I went to serve her tea. I accidentally overheard Priya Didi talking to someone on her mobile phone. She sounded desperate. She said, I'm so scared. Please come back soon. I don't know who she was talking to, but she was crying. Before Kritika ma'am could ask anything more, we reached the door leading to the roof. We stepped out onto the wide terrace. We looked around everywhere, checking the floor and the concrete edge. Tapan walked right up to the edge, looked down at where body lay, and then turned back to Kritika ma'am. So, Agent Kritika, what does your gut say? Suicide or murder? Kritika ma'am crossed her arms, analyzing the dark roof. Evidence isn't clear enough yet. I can't say for sure. What do you think, advocate? Tapan gave a sharp, knowing nod. He said, it's murder, clear as day. Look around you. The terrace is dusty, covered in old leaf litter and completely unmaintained. It's obvious that nobody from this family ever comes up here to relax. But did you notice the steel railing on the stairs while we were climbing up? It was completely spotless. No dust, no grease, nothing. Someone wiped it down completely clean on purpose to destroy evidence. On top of that, the maid is hiding in fear, and Maya and Mukesh are definitely keeping secrets. Rutika ma'am looked at him, genuinely impressed. Nice observation, advocate, she said. She leaned over the concrete ledge and saw Officer Atul down below, the flash of his camera lighting up the darkness as he took crime scene photographs of Priya's body. She yelled down, Atul, get up here. Dust the entire stair railing for fingerprints immediately. Atul packed his kit and rushed upstairs to get to work. While Atul was dusting the railing, I happened to glance toward the front gates. Vittal told Milin. A sleek luxury car drove rapidly up the driveway. It was Prabhas, the younger son of Ahuja family, just returning from his factory visit in Nashik. He slammed his car door open and rushed toward the front step. The moment his eyes landed on Priya's cold body lying on the ground, he froze. His entire body started shaking and his eyes filled with tears. He looked completely devastated to see his sister in law dead. Down below, Mrs. Maya Ahuja walked out to comfort her younger son. Seeing them arrive, Kritika ma'am signaled to rest of us. Let's go down, she said. As we went down the stairs, the loud sirens of government ambulance echoed through the gate. The paramedics quickly landed Priya's body onto the stretcher and drove away for post-mortem examination. The real battle for the truth had just begun. Vittal took another sip of his tea, continuing to guide Millen through the memory. We walked down the stairs to the main driveway where Prabhas was standing. Kritika ma'am immediately stepped forward, flushed her CIP badge and introduced herself. She began asking him standard preliminary questions about his trip to Nashik, confirming his timeline, and checking if he had noticed anything unusual before leaving the city. While answering her, Prabha's eyes suddenly shifted past her shoulder. He spotted Tapan standing quietly near his car. A look of pure shock flashed across his face, instantly followed by a massive wave of relief. To Prabhas, Tapan wasn't just a random bystander. He was the brilliant legal mind who had saved his family business in court. Tapan stepped forward, his expression serious. Hello, Prabhas, he said quietly. Advocate Tapan. Prabhas breathed, shaking his hand lightly. What are you doing here? Are you representing us in this? How did you get here with Agent Kritika? Nothing like that, Pravas. I happened to be visiting the CIB headquarters tonight on some personal matters when their official vehicle broke down in a parking lot. Since time was critical, I simply offered them a lift in my car with Raghu. Prabhas nodded, understanding the situation. Then his face softened, his eyes filling with deep, genuine sympathy as he looked at Tapan. I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss, Tapan. I read about what happened to your brother Rajan. For a monster like Vijay Rao to do something so horrific to your family, it's unforgivable. You have my deepest condolences. Milin, you should have seen Tapan's face at that moment, Vittal said. The mention of his brother's name hit him like a physical blow. He didn't say a single word. He just closed his eyes, swallowed hard, and gave a stiff nod of appreciation. Even back then, the guilt of letting Vijay Rao walk free was eating him alive from inside. Vittal leaned forward as he continued to map out the mystery for Milind. Krutika ma'am decided it was time to check Priya's room. She looked at Prabhas and asked him to guide her straight to Mukesh and Priya's bedroom upstairs. Prabhas asked Tapan to join them. The moment they stepped inside the room, things took a massive turn. Kritika ma'am opened her massive wooden cupboard, and guess what? Every single piece of expensive jewelry was gone. The velvet boxes were lying empty on the shelves. It looked like a total robbery. Kritika ma'am searched for a suicide note, flipping through diaries and drawers, but she found absolutely nothing. If this was a suicide, why was her locker wiped clean? And why didn't she leave a single word behind? While they were searching the bedroom upstairs, Atul and I were doing a thorough sweep of the rest of the massive bungalow down below. Mukesh was walking right beside us, looking highly nervous. As we reached the very edge of the estate, we noticed that the heavy iron back gate of the property was swinging wide open. I looked up and immediately spotted a CCTV camera pointing straight at the gate. I tapped Atul on the shoulder and pointed at it. We need to see that footage right now, I told him. We hurried over to a small room with a cement wall where the guards sat. Atul fired up the system, rewound the tape, and we all stared intensely at the monitor. At exactly 8:45 pm, the 30 minutes before Priya's death, a man sneaked in through that back gate. The camera caught his face perfectly. Mukesh gasped, pointing a shaking finger at the screen. That's him! That's Priya's brother! Mukesh yelled. We told Mukesh to dial the brother's number immediately, but the line went straight to the dead. He was unreachable. Seeing the dead end, I turned to Mukesh and said, if the Priya's brother isn't picking up, give me Priya's parents' number. We need to alert them about their daughter. Mukesh slowly shook his head. He looked at me and said, it's no use, officer. Her parents went out of town a couple days ago for some urgent work. We have been trying to call them ourselves since the incident, but we haven't been able to establish contact with them either. Vittal took a deep breath as he described the next part of the night to Milind. After checking the security cameras, we all gathered in the living room. Kritika ma'am looked at the younger brother and said, Prabhas, it is very late right now, and I know you must be exhausted from your long drive back from Nashik. Can you visit the CIB office tomorrow morning? We need to ask you some questions for the official investigation. The moment those words left her mouth, Maya Ahuja stood up from the sofa, her face turning bright red with anger. What kind of madness is this? Maya yelled. We have just lost a member of our family. A tragedy has happened under our roof. Instead of going out there and catching Priya's brother, the man who actually broke into our house, you are standing here questioning my innocent son. Then she looked at Prabhas and said, Prabhas, I don't understand why you call CIB here. Kritika ma'am didn't blink. Mrs. Maya, asking your son to visit our house does not mean we are accusing him of killing Priya. This is a standard legal formality. We have to do it for every single case. Maya stepped closer, staring directly into Kritika ma'am's eyes with pure arrogance. Listen to me very carefully, agent. We are Ahujas. In the city of Mumbai, our name means power. If my son steps foot inside the CIB headquarters, the media will see it instantly. It will become breaking news, and I will not allow dirty rumors about my family to run on every news channel. I understand your position, Kritika ma'am replied, but I have a duty to fulfill, and I will fulfill it. That completely broke Maya's patience. Do you even know who you are talking to? She said. Kritika ma'am didn't back down an inch. She stepped right up to Maya, looked at her dead in the eye, and snapped back. Let me make something very clear to you, Mrs. Maya. Every single person who was present at this crime location at the time of the death is a suspect. Legally, I have full authority to bring your entire family down to the station for interrogation right now. Maya felt completely insulted. Her hands were shaking with rage. She immediately reached into her pocket, pulling out her phone to call someone high ranking politician or police commissioner to get Kritika ma'am suspended. But before she could dial, Tapan stepped directly in between. He put on his most polite, respectful smile and looked at Maya. Mrs. Maya, please calm down, Tapan said gently, lowering the tension in the room. Let the CIB do their work. If you try to block a murder investigation right now using your connections, it will look highly suspicious to the public. Trust me, fighting them will cause much bigger trouble for your family's reputation than a simple private meeting. Let us handle this smoothly. Tapan's words worked like magic. Maya realized the High Court lawyer was right. She slowly lowered her phone, but the furious look on her face told us she wasn't going to forget this insult anytime soon. Vittal leaned back in his chair, gesturing with his hands as he continued the story. By the time we finally left the Ahuja bungalow, it was well past midnight. Since our vehicle was tilted, we all piled back into the luxury backseat of Tapan's car. His assistant, Raghu, drove us smoothly through the quiet city streets while we began debating the case. Milin listened closely. I was the first one to speak up, Vittal said. I looked across the seat and said, I strongly feel the brother did it. Think about it. He violently choked her last week, demanding money, and we literally saw him sneaking through the back gate of the CCTV right before she died. That guy looks like a total degenerate. That's probably why Priya's parents haven't shown up yet. They are probably ashamed or hiding him. Atul immediately shook his head from the front passenger seat. No way. The parents are just out of town. They will turn up. I think the real killer is Prabhas, the younger brother in law. Did you see him at the entrance? He was crying and sobbing way more than Mukesh, her actual husband. Why would a brother in law be that devastated unless he was overacting to hide his guilt? Kritika ma'am nodded from the corner of the seat, agreeing with Atul's logic. Atul has a point. It's classic criminal tactic. The killer is often the very person who calls the police first, just to steer the suspicion away from themselves. Prabhas called our director directly to get us involved. It makes him look innocent. That's when Tapan spoke up. I don't think Prabhas is the killer, he said. Kritika ma'am laid out a sharp, cynical laugh. Of course, you don't, advocate. He is a major client of your law firm. You are naturally biased. Tapan turned his head and looked straight at her. It has nothing to do with legal contracts, Agent Kritika. I watched his face very closely when he saw her body. I saw genuine love and pure heartbreak in his eyes for Priya. A guilty man can fake anger or fear, but he cannot fake that specific kind of hollow grief. If Prabhas is innocent, then that points the finger directly at Mukesh, Kritika ma'am reasoned. He was physically present in the house at the exact time of her death, and he claims he just happened to see her fall. Tapan dropped us off the CIB office and then went home. The next morning, the real investigation kicked off, Vittal said to Milin. Milin leaned in, hanging onto every word. First came the medical examiner's report. Priya was pregnant. The autopsy confirmed she had few weeks along. Clearly, this wasn't just a tragic fall or a simple robbery gone wrong. Next, we analyzed her mobile network logs from the night of the incident. Right before she died, Priya made a phone call to her mother. They spoke for a few minutes. Immediately after hanging up with her mother, Priya frantically tried to call the younger brother Prabhas. She tried him multiple times in a row, but he never picked up. Why was she desperately reaching out to her brother in law right before her death instead of her own husband? Milind asked, unable to keep quiet. Exactly. That's the riddle that kept us up. Vittal pointed a finger at Milind. But the biggest shocker was waiting inside her financial records. Our tech team pulled Priya's personal bank account history. Priya came from a humble middle class family, but the record showed that just a few weeks before the wedding, Mukesh Ahuja had personally transferred 1 crore rupees directly into her account. A multimillionaire industrialist transferring this amount of money to an ordinary middle class girl before they even get married. It made absolutely no sense. Was it a payoff? Was it a hush money? Or was Priya harboring on the secret so dangerous that the Ahujas had to buy her silence before bringing her into their home? Vittal leaned back, shaking his head. So the next stop for the Kritika ma'am and me was Priya's parents' home. It was a massive contrast to Ahuja's estate. Just a very small, cramped house in the crowded neighborhood. The walls were peeled and the air was thick with grief. Ria's mother was crying uncontrollably when we walked in. She told us they had been away at their native village handling some old property dispute when they got the news that Priya had committed suicide. Millie nodded slowly, listening to every detail. But then Kritika ma'am started squeezing them for answers. Vittal continued. Asked the mother directly about the 1 crore rupees Mukesh had transferred to Priya before the wedding. The woman's eyes darted away instantly. She lied right to her faces, claiming her husband's small business was going through heavy losses, so Mukesh had generously gifted them the money to clear their debts. When we brought up the postmortem findings and then asked about the pregnancy, she lied about that too, throwing her hands up and swearing she had absolutely no idea Priya was expecting a child. Did she really not know, or was she covering? Melinda asked. Oh, she was covering up big time, Vittal said. Next, Kritika ma'am shifted the focus to brother. She asked them where Priya's brother was hiding since his phone was completely switched off. The mother looked terrified and said, We don't know where he is. We haven't been able to reach him either. Kritika ma'am looked at the mother and said, Don't worry, we will track him down. No criminal has ever successfully escaped from the CIB. And that is exactly where the mother panicked. Emotions completely overdo her caution and she blurted out something she was absolutely not supposed to say. No, no, the mother cried out, grabbing Kritika's ma'am's hand. He would never hurt Priya. He is not a murderer. Yes, he does have some bad habits, things we are always scolding him for and telling him to stop. But murder? No, never. Kritika ma'am's eyes lit up. She leaned in instantly and asked, What things, Mrs. Sharma? What exactly does he do? But the mother immediately shut her mouth tight. She realized she had just massively slipped up. Before we could press her any further, Priya's father quickly jumped into the conversation, loudly covering up for his wife and steering the talk back to the standard grief. Realizing we wouldn't get anything more out of them at that moment, we wrapped up the meeting, left the house, and drove straight back to the CIB headquarters. Peter took a deep breath, his expression turning sharp as he recalled the turning point of the investigation. Later that afternoon, Officer Atul walked into Kritika ma'am's office with a disappointed look on his face. He dropped a forensic report on her desk. It was the fingerprint result from the terrace staircase railing. Just as Tapan has guessed, the steel had been wiped down. There were faint smudged marks left behind, but they were not clear enough to recognize anyone or be presented as solid evidence in court. Before Kritika ma'am could process the bad news, the CIB director, Mr. Chatterjee, called us into his cabin. Word about the heated argument between Kritika ma'am and Mrs. Maya Ahuja had already reached his ears. Because the Ahujas were incredibly powerful, the director wanted us to handle the case with extreme caution. I don't want any member of the Ahuja family brought down to the CIB office for interrogation, the director ordered firmly. Go back to their bungalow and question them quietly in their own home. Kritika ma'am was furious. She tried to convince the director. But sir, the entire family is highly suspicious. Priya comes from a poor financial background. Why would Mukesh Ahuja, the owner of a massive industrial empire, marry her? He even transferred 1 crore rupees in her account before the wedding. Was it a contract marriage? On top of that, she was pregnant, and we found absolutely no reason for a pregnant woman to commit suicide. This looks like a calculated murder. Everything about this family is suspicious. The director sighed and shook his head. Huh. If the media gathers outside our office, it will make our job 10 times more difficult. Do your interrogation at their house. This is a direct order. So we had no choice but to drive back to the Ahuja bungalow. Vittal continued. When we walked into the grand living room, the atmosphere was completely ice cold. Mrs. Maya Ahuja was sitting on the sofa, and right beside her sat Prabhas. But Prabhas wasn't alone. He had brought Tapan along as his defense lawyer. Maya looked at us with a cold, mocking smile. She turned to her house staff and ordered them to bring tea for everyone. Then she pulled a small bottle of hand sanitizer from her pant pocket, squeezed a few drops onto her palm, and deliberately cleaned her hands while staring directly at Kritika ma'am. So, Agent Kritika, you came all the way back here for an interrogation? Maya said tauntingly. Tell me, what exactly changed your mind about dragging us to your office? Prabhas immediately shot his mother a warning look, signaling her to stop messing with CIB team. He quickly turned to us to break the tension. Please have some tea, agent, he said politely. We all sat down and drank our tea, but the actual interrogation was total disaster. We wouldn't get a single useful answer out of Prabhas. Tapan had prepared his client perfectly before we arrived. Every time Kritika ma'am asked a sharp question, Tapan would step in, block the question, or advising Prabhas not to answer. Frustrated and empty handed, Kritika ma'am and I began walking out of the grand estate toward our car. But just as we crossed the manicured lawn, we saw the family gardener working near the bushes. Kritika ma'am decided to strike up a casual conversation with him, asking if he had noticed anything strange around the house recently. Gardner looked around nervously to ensure no family members were watching from the window. Then he leaned in and dropped a massive bomb. The day before Priya Didi died, she had a terrible, screaming argument right out here in the garden with Suman, the housemaid. The gardener whispered. Priya Didi was furious. She was scolding the maid harshly, blaming her for not interfering and not speaking up in family matters. I looked at Gardner sharply. Where is the maid now? We need to speak with her, I said. She hasn't come back to work since the night Priya Didi died, Gardner replied. She took a sudden unannounced leave. Pratika ma'am and I exchanged an intense look. The terrified maid who overheard the phone call was suddenly missing right after the death. We didn't waste another second. We got her address from Prabhas, jumped into our car, and drove straight to her home. Vittal's voice grew intense. Kritika ma'am and I kicked open the door to the maid's small house, and you wouldn't believe what we saw. Suman and Priya's brother were right there, frantically throwing clothes into suitcases. They were seconds away from running out of the city. We tackled them right on the spot and brought them straight into our interrogation room. When we ripped open their bags, we found all of the Priya's missing jewelry stuffed inside. Millen gasped. So they did it. They killed her and robbed her. That's exactly what it looked like, Vittal said, leaning forward. But the interrogation revealed a completely different story. Incredibly messy story. It turned out Suman and Priya's brother were secretly having an affair. We pressed the brother hard. He broke down crying and confessed everything. The guy was a severe alcohol addict and a failed artist. He had wasted massive amount of money throwing wild parties and had taken huge loans from dangerous people. To save his life from those loan sharks, Priya had desperately begged her husband Mukesh for money before their wedding. That was the mystery behind the 1 crore rupees. Mukesh had given it to Priya so she could clear her brother's heavy debts. But the addiction didn't stop there, Vittal explained. Brother claimed that alcohol was the only thing that helped him draw his art. Since he was completely broke, Suman started stealing expensive bottles of wine and liquor from the Ahuja Bungalow's bar to give to him. A day before the incident, Priya caught Suman red handed, had that massive screaming fight in the garden, and threatened to fire her immediately. And what about the night she died? Milind asked. The brother swore he only sneaked through the back gate at 8:45 p.m. to meet Suman and take robbed jewelry from her. He insisted that he left the estate within 10 minutes and Priya was perfectly fine when he walked away. He claimed she fell from the terrace long after he was gone. Ritika ma'am wasn't buying a single word of it. To her, they had the stolen jewelry, they had a motive because Priya was going to fire the maid and they were fleeing the city. She stood up, ready to officially charge both of them with first degree murder. But right at that exact moment, the interrogation room door flew open. Priya's mother rushed in, completely panicked because she had heard her son was in CIB custody. She couldn't see her son go to jail, so she dropped a bombshell that shattered the entire case. Stop! The mother screamed, throwing a medical file onto the table. My son didn't kill her. You have it all wrong. Priya wasn't carrying her husband Mukesh's child. She was having a secret affair with the younger brother, Prabhas. The baby inside her belonged to Prabhas. The mother handed over the actual medical reports and private test papers proving the affair. Suddenly, the entire room went dead silent. We didn't waste a single second. Our tech team rushed to track Prabhas' mobile phone location records from the night of the murder. And boom, we caught him in a massive lie. He was never in the Nashik inspecting factory blueprints. His phone tower data placed him right here in the Mumbai, at the exact same private hospital where Priya had secretly gone to get her pregnancy test. Milin's eyes widened. So, he knew about the baby? Listen to what happened next, Vittal said, leaning forward. Kritika ma'am was furious. She was completely convinced that Prabhas was the mastermind behind the murder. We drove straight back to the Ahuja bungalow, and this time, Kritika ma'am brought arrest warrants. She was fully prepared to handcuff him. When we walked in, the tension was through the roof. But just like before, Prabhas flatly refused to answer any of her questions, and Tapan stood right beside him, legally blocking us at every single turn. It was impossible to make him open up. That's when Kritika ma'am lost her patience. She decided to drop the ultimate truth bomb right in front of the whole family. She looked at Prabhas and said, "We know you were at the hospital, Prabhas, and we know Priya was pregnant." Maya and Mukesh looked completely shocked. It was obvious that absolutely no one else in the family knew about the pregnancy. When Prabhas heard Kritika ma'am say it out loud, something inside him completely snapped. The pressure became too much and his anger exploded. Yes, I loved her, Prabhas yelled, tears streaming down his face as he broke down right in front of his family. We were having an affair. She was carrying my child. He turned his crying face toward Tapan, grabbing his lawyer's jacket tightly. Tapan, please, whoever did this to her, whoever killed my Priya, I don't care who it is, use all your power to make sure they get maximum punishment. Make them rot in jail. Ritika ma'am realized that Prabhas was too emotional to talk to the police, but he trusted his lawyer. So she quietly pulled Tapan aside. Advocate, if Prabhas talks to you, we can finally catch the real killer. Please get him to speak, she requested. Tapan nodded. He walked over to Prabhas, calmed him down, and asked him privately, Prabhas, if you loved her, tell me the truth. What exactly were you doing at the hospital on the night she died? But Prabhas suddenly shut down. He refused to answer. He looked into Tapan's eyes and said, I cannot tell you that, but I swear on my life, Tapan, I did not kill her. I just want you to find out who the real monster is. And right as he said those words, Prabhas turned his head and stared across the room at his elder brother Mukesh. It was a look of pure, burning hatred. The mystery was far from over. Vittal took a final, deep sip of his tea and set the cup down with a sharp clack. This is where Tapan showed his absolute genius. The very next morning, he walked into the CIB office with a brilliant, highly dangerous plan. We were all incredibly hesitant because it involved using a witness as a bait. But Krutika ma'am decided to take the risk. Milin leaned in, completely breathless. What was the plan, sir? We went to the lockup and cut a deal with Suman, the maid. Vittal explained. We made her write a terrifying anonymous note and had it slip directly into the Ahuja household. The note read, I know your secret. If you want my mouth shut, bring 1 crore rupees to my house tonight. After the note was delivered, Suman went back to her house, and the CIB team hid in the shadows, waiting to see who would walk through that door. The clock struck midnight. Suddenly, the front door of the maid's house cracked open. We braced ourselves, expecting to see Mukesh, but when the lights hit the doorway, we gasped. It was Maya herself, Mrs. Maya Ahuja, holding the crumpled blackmail note in her hand. She marched straight up to Suman, her face twisted with rage, and demanded, "What is the meaning of this?" Suman, playing her part perfectly, bluffed right back. "It means exactly what it says, ma'am. I saw you. I saw you push Priya off the terrace that night." That completely broke Maya. Realizing her secret was out, Maya lost her mind. She lunged forward, grabbing Suman by the throat, trying to strangle her to death right then and there. But before she could do any damage, Kritika ma'am burst out from the shadows, tackled Maya to the ground, and saved the maid's life. Maya collapsed into the chair. She finally confessed. "Yes, I pushed her." Maya cried out, her high society pride completely shattered. "It was all a business arrangement from the start. My elder son, Mukesh, is infertile. He can never become a father. To protect our family empire and lineage, we needed a shield. Priya was working in our company. Her family was desperate for money to pay off her brother's massive debt. One day she came to me and asked for financial help. So I offered her a contract marriage. We gave her 1 crore rupees, and in exchange, she married Mukesh to keep up appearances. But Priya and Prabhas genuinely fell in love. They started a secret affair, and Priya got pregnant with Prabhas' child. I find out about the pregnancy directly from the family doctor and rushed to confront Priya on the terrace that night. Maya trembled as she recounted her final words. I begged her to keep it a secret. I told her we would raise the baby as Mukesh's child and she could quietly continue her affair with Prabhas. But she refused. She screamed that she wanted a divorce from Mukesh. She wanted to marry Prabhas legally and tell him the whole truth the second he got back from Nashik. She was going to utterly destroy her family's pristine reputation. So I pushed her off the ledge. Right after the arrest, Prabhas confessed that Priya had dropped a hint to him that Mukesh was hiding a medical secret and couldn't have a child. Prabhas had secretly gone to that hospital on the night of the murder to meet the doctor and confirm if his brother was truly infertile. He was looking for the truth, completely unaware that his mother was murdering the woman he loved at that exact same moment. We officially locked Mrs. Maya Ahuja behind bars, leaning back to his chair with a satisfied smile. "But, sir," Milin asked, his mind spinning, "how did Tapan figure out it was Maya from the very beginning?" Vittal laughed softly. "That's the beauty of it, kid. I asked Tapan the exact same thing on the way back. Tapan smiled and told me, 'Vittal, remember the spotless chair railing on the night of the murder? And remember how Maya pulled a bottle of alcohol based hand sanitizer out of her pocket the next day? Maya had difficulty while walking, so she needed stair railing to go upstairs. She had panicked right after pushing Priya. She grabbed her personal sanitizer, poured it all over the steel railing, and wiped it down, thinking the strong alcohol would completely erase her fingerprints. She thought she was being clever, but that spotless, heavy clean railing was the exact clue that gave her away to Detective Tapan." Vittal took a deep breath, the intensity in his voice softening as he brought the story back to its conclusion. The next morning, the atmosphere inside the CIB headquarters was completely different. Director Chatterjee called Kritika ma'am into his cabin and praised her endlessly for the cracking such a high profile, sensitive case without letting the media derail it. Milin smiled. watching Vittal lean back. But it was Tapan's victory, wasn't it? Exactly. Vittal nodded, pointing a finger. And Kritika ma'am didn't take an ounce of credit she didn't deserve. She looked straight at director and said, "Sir, the praise belonged to Tapan. He saw the clues we missed, and if it weren't for his sharp mind and psychological strategy, Maya Ahuja would still be walking free." Then she dropped a brilliant recommendation. She suggested that the CIB should officially bring Tapan on board as an external consultant to help us with complex criminal cases. Director Chatterjee didn't need any convincing. He loved the idea immediately. Later that afternoon, Kritika ma'am found Tapan sitting on the exact same wooden bench. Vittal continued, his voice turning gentle. She walked up to him, handed him a fresh cup of coffee, and thanked him sincerely. Then she looked at him with a real concern in her eyes. "Tapan," she said softly, "I have been watching you for weeks. You are completely avoiding the High Court. You are neglecting your law practice. And you are spending your entire day sitting right here, starving yourself, just hoping a random lead on Vijay Rao will magically pop up. You can't keep living like this." Tapan stared at his coffee cup, silent. For the first time in months, solving the Ahuja case had actually made him feel alive again. It gave his grief a purpose. Kritika ma'am leaned closer. "Join us, Tapan. Work with the CIB. We need a mind like yours." Tapan looked up, his eyes locking onto hers with absolute focus. "I want to do this, Kritika. I want to be a full time consultant for your team. But I have one non negotiable condition." "Name it," she replied. "I want complete unrestricted access to my brother Rajan's case file. I want to see every piece of intelligence the CIB gathers on Vijay Rao and his father Gopal Rao the moment it hits your desk. No secrets." Kritika ma'am didn't hesitate. She marched straight back into the director's cabin, explained the terms, and within 10 minutes, Director Chatterjee signed the official paperwork. He stepped out and handed the formal letter of voluntary appointment directly to Kritika ma'am, who passed it over to Tapan with a firm handshake. And that, Milin, is exactly how Advocate Tapan Thite officially joined the CIB. Vittal went silent, the nostalgic look fading from his eyes as he took a final glance at his empty teacup. Vittal stopped talking, leaving the young officer alone with his thoughts. Milin sat in silence for a long time. The story of the Ahuja case had left him completely awestruck. "I'm amazed," Milin finally admitted, looking up at Vittal. "Tapan's intellect is on a completely different level, but it makes me wonder, if he is this brilliant, how has he still not found Vijay Rao? The man literally shot his brother." Vittal let out a grim, humorless laugh. "How will he find him completely alone, Milin? A brilliant mind can go only so far. You need massive police infrastructure and state support for the manhunt of this scale. And Gopal Rao isn't just a local politician, he is powerful minister in the parliament. When a man has that kind of political shield, even the entire police force finds it nearly impossible to touch him." "But don't you think Vijay would have fled the country by now?" Millen questioned, leaning forward. "With that kind of wealth and power, escaping across the border seems like the first thing a criminal would do." "It's not that easy." Vittal shook his head. Officer Ratul, who had been listening from his desk, spun around in his chair to join the conversation. "Vittal is right, Milin. Gopal Rao didn't get to the top without making blood enemies. There are rival syndicates and politicians who want nothing more than to see his son dead or in jail. If Vijay tries to escape via international sea routes, his father's enemies will intercept him before we do. If he had fled the country, we would have known it from the sources. If no such information is coming, then he is still here." Milin sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Hmm. But even with all those restrictions, We are still sitting here, unable to find a single trace of him. We will find him soon, his voice brimming with confidence. It's a brutal waiting game when Gopal Rao has deep contacts inside law and order, tipping his son off at every turn. But we have the absolute best team in the bureau working on this. Right now, we are keeping a hidden 24-hour watch on Keshav. Keshav? Milin asked, unfamiliar with the name. He is the son of Vijay's personal getaway driver, Atul explained. The night Vijay murdered Rajan, he didn't run alone. He fled the city with two people, his right enforcer Lala and his trusted driver. Our intelligence confirmed the driver is still physically hiding with Vijay right now. Eventually, that driver will try to contact his son Keshav. The moment he makes the call or sends a message, our trap will snap shut and we will bag all of them together. Vittal nodded in agreement. Officer Deva is one of the best field operators we have. So stop worrying about Vijay Rao for a moment. Vittal reached over and tapped the file resting in front of Milin. For now, focus on reading that case file Kritika ma'am handed you this morning. Study every line. You know how she is. She will call you into her cabin for an update soon, and you don't want to be caught unprepared. While Vittal was briefing the million downstairs, Agent Kritika and Tapan went to second floor of the office where the surveillance team sits. Give us an update, Deva, Kritika ordered. What's the latest on Keshav? Deva rubbed his tired eyes, pointing to one of the live video feeds. Right now, Keshav and his wife are laying low over there at her parents' house. We have had eyes on the property 24/7, but things just got incredibly complicated over the last 24 hours. Tapan focused incredibly on the monitors. What changed? Yesterday morning, around 11 a.m., a couple of Gopal Rao's heavy duty enforcers pulled up to the house in black SUV. Deva explained, pulling up archive footage from the previous day. They didn't break the door down, but they made it very clear that Keshav didn't have a choice. They bundled him into the back seat and drove him straight to the minister's main bungalow. Did you follow them? Kritika asked, her fingers tapping against clipboard. We waited outside the perimeter, Deva admitted. But when Keshav finally came back an hour later, the guy was absolutely seething. He looked furious, pure rage on his face. He stormed back into his wife's parents' house, slammed the front door, and hasn't stepped a single foot outside since. Deva tapped another file on his table. We did some deeper digging into Keshav's daily routine. He works as the head accountant at Gopal Rao's luxury restaurant and bar downtown. And here is the kicker. Just a couple of hours ago, Keshav's immediate boss from that restaurant came all the way out here to visit him at the house. Tapan's posture went completely rigid. Wait, Tapan interrupted. Gopal Rao's restaurant and bar? Is that the exact same establishment where my brother Rajan was killed? Deva turned around to face him, his expression grim. Yes, Tapan, it is the exact same venue. Tapan's fist clenched inside his pocket. Was Keshav there that night? Did he see who pulled the trigger? That's the blind spot, Deva sighed, shaking his head. We know he manages the accounts there, but our current intelligence can't confirm whether he was physically present in the building on the night of the shooting or if he was off duty. We are still trying to pull the restaurant's internal shift logs. Deva checked his watch. Look, my active monitoring shift is starting up again right now, and I need to get back. If you need a more detailed breakdown of what happened during the early hours of the morning, you can talk to officer who just wrapped up the night shift. With a quick, respectful nod to Kritika and a lingering, supportive look at Tapan, Deva went down by elevator. The next day, Tapan sat at vacant desk near Kritika's cabin, his eyes glued to his phone, waiting for any update from Deva's surveillance team. Morning melted into a restless afternoon, and afternoon hardened into evening. Deva hadn't called, hadn't checked in, and hadn't returned to headquarters. By 10 p.m., the office was nearly empty. Just as Tapan stood up, throwing his jacket over his shoulder to finally leave, the heavy glass door of the office burst open. An officer from Deva's field team ran inside. He didn't even knock, he rushed straight into Kritika's cabin. Ma'am, the officer yelled, his voice shaking. It's Deva. He has been ambushed. He is alive, but he is badly injured. Emergency services just brought him into the city hospital. Tapan and Kritika didn't waste a single second. They sprinted down to the parking lot, sirens blaring as Kritika tore through the midnight traffic toward the hospital. When they reached the trauma ward, they found Deva propped up against a stack of pillows. His left shoulder was heavily bandaged, his face was scraped raw, and a thick cast covered his right ankle. Despite the heavy painkillers, his eyes were sharp with anger when he saw Kritika and Tapan walk in. Report Deva. What the hell happened out there? Kritika asked. Kritika, I was trailing Kesho all morning. Deva wheezed, wincing as he shifted his weight. But around noon, his behavior changed. I'm certain Keshav realized he was under CIB surveillance. He started dropping subtle signals, looking directly into my rear view mirror, stalling at corners, making deliberate gestures. At first, I thought he was trying to secretly communicate with me, signaling for help, but I couldn't risk blowing my cover, so I stayed back to confirm. Deva took a shallow breath and continued. Few hours later, Keshav suddenly bolted out of the house. He jumped onto the two-wheeler and sped off toward the local central market. I followed him in my unmarked car, but within minutes I noticed we weren't the only ones tracking him. There was a heavy black motorcycle tailing him too, carrying two men. Kopa Rao's men, Tapan muttered. His jaw tightened. Exactly, Deva nodded. Keshav parked his scooter at the entrance of the bazaar. One of the riders parked right behind him. I abandoned my car and pursued them on foot. The market was an absolute nightmare, packed shoulder to shoulder with shoppers. Keshav began intentionally moving deeper and deeper into the narrow vegetable alleys. Deva's expression turned grim. That's when they executed the trap. The first biker deliberately showed a heavy vegetable vendor flipping an entire wooden stall into the path. Mass chaos exploded instantly. Crates shattered, people started screaming, and a massive wave of panicked shoppers surged backwards. I got completely pinned against the concrete wall by the crowd, Deva said, hitting the hospital bed in frustration. Through the gap in the crowd, I saw Keshav run ahead, but the first biker was right on his heels. Before I could draw my weapon and break through the surge, the second man blindsided me. He came out of a dark alleyway behind me, struck me across the skull with blunt object, and knocked me clean out. The panicked crowd didn't even see me drop. They just trampled right over my legs and torso while I was unconscious. My field unit checked the Keshav's house an hour ago. Deva said he never came back. They knew we were watching him. They snatched him right under our noses before he could talk to us. Kritika leaned over the bed. Did you get a look at them, Deva? Any photos, anything we can use? The crowded market blocked my camera and they were both covering their faces with loose cloth. Deva replied, closing his eyes to recall the memory. But right before the chaos broke out, the wind caught the first rider's cloth on his face. I saw his face. I can describe his features perfectly. And better yet, I memorized the license plate of their motorcycle before they ditched it. The cold glint of hope returned to Kritika's eyes. She turned toward the doorway and pulled out her phone. Good work, Deva. Rest up. Tapan, let's get the forensic team on that license plate immediately. Deva, I'm sending our best sketch artist up to your room right now. We are going to draw his face from your memory and we are going to hunt him down. The heavy glass door of the hospital closed behind Tapan, but the weight of the night followed him all the way home. When he unlocked the door to his dark, quiet bungalow, the silence was deafening. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't even take off his shoes. He just walked straight to the kitchen cabinet, grabbed a bottle of heavy liquid, and went out onto the balcony of his bedroom. For months, he had lived in a single burning shred of hope. Keshav was the only thread connecting the getaway driver, the right hand Lala, and the monster Vijay Ram. And now, in a single afternoon, that hope had been violently ripped away. Keshav was gone, swallowed up by Gopal Rao's criminal empire, and Deva was broken in hospital bed. The trail had gone completely cold. Tapan twisted the cap of the bottle and took a long burning swig. The alcohol tore down his throat, but it wasn't fast enough to numb the agonizing memory of his brother Rajan lying in the pool of blood. He sat down heavily in the balcony chair, staring blindly. I failed you, Rajan. The thought echoed in his mind, cutting deeper than physical blade. He took another deep drink, then another. The grief, the exhaustion, and the absolute helplessness in his situation poured out of him. He didn't use a glass. He just drank straight from the bottle, trying desperately to wash away the vivid image of Vijay Rao. The hours played together. His vision began to blur. Tapan tried to stand up, his muscles heavy and unresponsive. He reached out to grip the balcony railing for balance, but his hands completely missed the cold metal. The heavy glass bottle slipped from his numb fingers, rolling across the concrete as the remaining liquid spilled out. Tapan collapsed heavily onto the hard ground of the balcony, unconscious and broken under the open midnight sky.